This video was sponsored by Ifootage. So I want to create a video production kit in a single case that still allows for a lot of creative capacity, but doesn't drag me down. So one of the first things I bought for this project was this Power Dynamics Gig 42T case, and this is equivalent to the 1650 from Peli. What I really enjoy about this one is the depth as well, so most of my other flight cases aren't that deep. Now, because I don't really like the foam inserts that come with this case, we really had two options. So I could go with a Peli divider kit, which is quite expensive, or we could like custom make something. So I started 3D scanning the case, imported that into CAD software, created a very nice baseline for the bottom plate, and laser cut that on the Tyrock Spider X1S Pro. And this will become like the base that we can mount other stuff onto. So I cut these on 3mm hardboard, but for the final version I'll be cutting that with some multiplex, which is 8mm thick. Before we do that though, I want to 3D scan all of the gear and take you through all of the gear that I'm putting into this kit. As for the camera we're integrating, I'm 3D scanning my largest lens, the 50-140 from Fujifilm, with the X-T30 over here, but I shoot most of the YouTube stuff on my X-H2S, and I'm scanning this selection here because I want it to be somewhat future-proof to where I might be buying a 24-105 from Canon, for example, and that's the exact same size. So that's kind of the largest lens size that I would be getting for a kit like this. So for me, it's a little bit more difficult because I'm a hybrid shooter, right? I shoot a lot of pictures and I shoot a lot of video. And I really hope that internal NDs are coming to like the hybrid market really quite soon, because that would save me a ton of time. But for now, I'm using the Helix system, and these are magnetic VND filters and CP filters, and it is snap-on and it's really quite quick. A little while ago, Ifootage reached out and offered to send me their latest slider, the Ifootage Shark Nano 2. And this is a really awesome addition to the kit because it connects to the gimbal, right? But they sent over the full package, so with this electric ray, they're calling it. It's a battery grip, supplies 60 watts of power, and you can connect that to the slider as well. And that allows for a little bit more stability, I believe. But I haven't had any trouble with using MPF batteries so far, so that's pretty awesome. In terms of the slider itself, it comes really neatly packaged in this case, and it has a bunch of accessories in there as well, nice little pockets to store those. The slider is super high quality in terms of build, just fully metal construction, has carbon fiber rods and really smart design choices as well. So you can see on the inside over here, it has a cable running through the entire segment and then a coiled cable running around it. So when the slider moves up and down, then that coiled cable doesn't like go someplace else. And it comes pre-packaged with all of the connecting accessories that you would need to connect it to a gimbal, and they've recently also released an adapter for the Osmo Pocket 3, which is really quite awesome because that camera is so small that you can possibly put it in strange positions where it like floats through stuff, right? And the gimbal I'm using for this project is the DJI Ronin RS4 Pro. I've had that one for the longest time now, and I use it quite a lot on the commercial work, but it's a total pain to pack this thing up into a case, and that's also why I bought that massive gig case. Now, the nice thing about this combo between the Ifootage slider and this gimbal is that we can attach that gimbal, as I mentioned earlier. And it does require data transfer as well, so it has a little cable that goes onto the side. And once that's all set up, you can plug in an MPF battery onto the side. You slide it by hand to whatever position you want it, push the gimbal into whatever position you want it, set the in point, and then put it to the B position, and then select that out point, and you're ready to go. And that in and of itself is so fast that it makes up for most of the little glitches that I've experienced so far. What are you doing? But there's also just a ton of other benefits to having a gimbal on one of these sliders instead of like a pan tilt head. So I put my slider on this rolling B-roll stand system, which, you know, I have a couple videos on in the past. The thing with that is that we experience quite a lot of tilt, right? So when the slider's all the way at the end, it kind of bends that way. But because this is a gimbal, it automatically corrects for that, right? It's just a perfect combination for this production kit. And it's probably the first time I'll ever be taking a slider onto a corporate gig because it's fast enough to do it. But I'm super surprised as to how stable it actually is, considering it's two different brands, right? So like DJI and Ifootage, and I was expecting there to be a ton of glitches, a ton of like things that would make it basically impossible to use. But you'll see in this video that the slides that come out of this thing are just really awesome, and the time it takes to set up is just really low as well. But it doesn't mean that you actually have to use it with the gimbal on there. So it actually has a pan mechanism built in as well, where if you just use it without the gimbal, you can still set the in point and out point and put the pan in the correct position. And in that way, you won't run into any glitches at all. So Just a super kit. I think this is end game for sliders, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, I highly recommend you check them out. I'll leave some links in the description down below. Special thanks to Ifootage for sponsoring this video. As you can see in the 3D scans here, the slider fits all the way at the back of the case, and the gimbal will fit in a nice slot next to it. In general, I'm not that concerned with the camera that I'm using because most of the time it doesn't have the biggest impact on what the footage looks like or what the video will eventually feel like. So that's audio equipment and lighting, right? If you don't have proper lighting equipment, then the footage is going to look really bad if you have a good camera as well. And that's why I wanted to optimize also a little bit more for the lighting stuff. Now, I'm personally very heavily invested in Amaran and Aperture in that ecosystem. The problem with those lights is they always have a power brick which is just dangling all over the place. And so for this specific kit, I bought myself a SmallRig 220B Pro, which has a V-mount battery plate at the back, and that connects to this integrated power brick, which is just super smart. And I really appreciate SmallRig for doing this because it fits perfectly in this kit. Now, what's also really awesome is that we can upgrade this with some V-mount batteries from SmallRig sometime later down the line as well, and then we wouldn't have to rely on power from a socket, for example. When we're talking about modifiers though, I have this Ambitful parabolic softbox, and I'd actually like to pair that with a spotlight. So this is the Spotlight SE from Amaran. Basically, you can put gobos in this thing and you can create interesting patterns on the background, which is really important. Like lighting your background can be just as important as lighting your foreground for getting a lot more separation between your subject. Now, that means there's not really a hair light in this kit. Usually I frame my shots in a way where a window or something is a hair light, and then I motivate that lighting with the key light. So in terms of audio equipment, I'm still running the first iteration of the Rode Wireless Go. This is a wireless audio lapel system. So you have this tiny little microphone and you just clip that onto your Talent, put the transmitter in the back pocket, and that sends the audio directly to the camera. About a year ago, I also bought a Podcapture X6, which is a handheld recorder, 32-bit float internal recording, and it has two XLR inputs on the side and also some out ports. So sometimes what I do is I put the shotgun microphone with the XLR port into the Podcapture X6, and then I attach the Rode Wireless Go to the system, and that sends it directly to the camera. So I'm not syncing stuff in post. There is a little bit of loss in quality in that way, but it's not noticeable in any regard. And to accompany that recorder, we also have a shotgun microphone. So this is the Audio-Technica AT875R, and it's a very budget-friendly microphone, which I enjoy because, especially when you're solo operating stuff, things fall over. People trip over tripods, and it would be an absolute shame if you have like a Sennheiser 416, which just smashes onto the ground and is busted. These things, I'm not saying they're disposable, but they sound very similar to the 416. You can check out Curtis Judd's video on this microphone. It's very comparable, but it's just really super cheap. Alright, so the last addition to this kit is the teleprompter. So if you don't know what teleprompter is, it's basically this thing that you can place on front of the camera. It has a one-sided mirror on there, so it reflects text from a screen upwards, so the talent can read it, but they're looking directly into the lens of the camera, and so the camera can't see the text, right? This one's really quite large. It's from Elgato. I'm not sure if I'm keeping this one in the kit because it takes up so much room and it's not really optimized for on-location work. It's quite fragile, and I've been looking into upgrading to the SmallRig teleprompter and just snapping on a display. One thing I'm concerned about with the Elgato prompter as well is it relies on software. So if the software crashes or it doesn't function properly because you did an update to your MacBook, for example, then essentially you're pretty screwed on location. Having a display on that thing, you can connect any kind of laptop that is laying around, or an iPad, or even a phone, and that would work a lot better. There is definitely some additional kit that I take onto location which is in a different bag, and that's just a backpack, mainly my iPad Pro, because it's really handy for viewing the live feed as well. So we have the Raven Eye system on the gimbal, and that's connected to the camera. It sends the live feed directly to the iPad, and that's really useful if you have a director or just a client that wants to look with you at the footage with a LUT applied. After having selected all of that gear, 3D scanning it and importing that into the CAD software, coming up with a rough layout, I made some dividers which were really quite baseline. Like, they're meant to also fit other stuff, but in general I think it would be way better to just buy a divider set from Peli, for example, and putting that into this case. On the flip side of that, I would have never known that we could cut this like foam padding with the laser cutter, which is how they apparently do it in the factory as well for like products that you buy in the store. So But that's really awesome. We created some custom padding for this thing, and we can push that slider into the top segment, and a spigot mount that's attached to this thing can stay on there, so we can quickly grab it without having to screw anything in. As for the gimbal segment, I added some extra padding onto the sides. This thing was still super difficult to actually integrate, and we still had to unlatch one of the columns to actually make it fit. But I'm hoping that in the next iteration we can do this a little bit better. In the middle we have a tiny little gap where we can place the MPF batteries, which initially was supposed to be a separate segment, but I don't have any room for that anymore. And we can place the ND filters in there alongside the audio recorder with an XLR cable. So in the rear segment over here we can place that video light, and there's enough room for a second one there as well. Now somehow some of the stuff just didn't fit, so I wasn't able to implement a camera. Instead of putting the camera in this case, I put the Spotlight SE because I do really want to take that one onto location. The camera, it will have to like sit in a backpack separately from all this stuff. Next to the Spotlight SE, I would have liked to place a separate divider to have a separation between all of those little knickknacks that we need to take with us as well. And then on the other side over there, we can place the teleprompter in this kit. Now if we don't take the teleprompter, we can also put a camera in this kit. And if we don't take a slider, we can actually put some light stands in the top segment over there. So I have these newer light stands which are just small enough to fit in the top over there, and we can place 2 of them in this suitcase. I was kind of expecting this project to go just as well as the panel build, you know, where everything just fits into place and it looks really decent as well. That wasn't really the case. We definitely need to do some upgrades to this production kit, maybe put a better divider system in there, but I hope it gave you some inspiration, and I hope it gave you some insight into the behind the scenes of the channel as well, all of the gear that I use to create the videos. Hopefully, see you in the next one.